Are we live? That's the whole thing is I can't even tell on here if we're live or not. All right, do not disturb is up there. I can't even tell on here if we're live or not. Are we live?
Michael's joining us. Michael Martineau. We are live.
We're doing it live.
And
sorry,
M.
folks.
Neal, Blue Out Media has joined us.
Well, that's kind of them.
Got some hearts. Larry, Citizen, Paula.
Hearts are nice.
Deb,
I like them.
Carol. Woohoo!
All right, we got the gang here. Welcome, guys, to Amped Up. Amped Up with David Shuster. It's our new show.
Another day. This has just been like, a lot of people think that this is like Christmas come early or whatever the analogy is. For people who are really into investigative reporting and emails and digging through transcripts and data, this has been like heaven.
I know. I mean, this literally like the old line about Christmas, but it's like Christmas plus New Year's plus Hanukkah, all in one.
Yeah.
So I'm going to do what you're doing right now, David, and see if I can't get a look at what all of the kind commenters are saying on our
Patty Weber's joined us. Lawrence Winterman joined us.
There we are. Woo. Oh wait. Yeah.
So Cliff, now that we've had 24 hours, excuse me, to think about and to to sort of take in some of these emails and some of the way the media has handled this, a couple of things stand out to me, and I was going to get your perspective as well. MSNBC had a graphic that said something like, Epstein mentions Trump several times. Epstein mentioned Trump thousands of times. What is wrong with them? What is wrong with the mainstream media? I also keep seeing this constant, the emails show that Donald Trump and Jeffrey Epstein had a closer relationship than Donald Trump has let on. Duh. You think so? They were best friends for 15. So I can't understand, why is the media the mainstream media, the corporate media, they're so terrified of actually going out on a limb and reporting the truth. And you're not going out on a limb.
At the New York Times, they've gotten over their should women be allowed in the workplace phase? David, are you still talking?
I'm still talking.
Oh, weird. Okay, I need to look at like the StreamYard version of you. It's a different time on the other one. Yeah, I said they got past their phase, it seems to me, of are women, did we get worse by having women in the workplace? They literally allowed that.
Right.
That was allowed to be a debate at the New York Times. Again, I keep saying it, and I'll say it forever. Do they have some great investigative reporting in some of these places? Yes. Can we make up for that? We've got some people that we're looking at bringing in right now who are investigative reporters who are better than they are. They have brought us to this situation. There were other factors too. It is that kind of crap. It is the lack of context, the lack of, he's mentioned many times. I mean, what else? You think maybe in that headline, when most people are too busy and they only see headlines, you might have mentioned, in the headlines, you might have mentioned in there, Trump is only mentioned in convicted pedophile Jeffrey Epstein, or mention the fact that Epstein actually said something about how Epstein thought Donald Trump was the worst human being on earth who had no redeeming qualities. That's what Epstein.
It's in his emails. I mean,
if they gave people context, this isn't about ad hominems. It's if they gave the people the context and how awful this person is versus just screw ups by people, other people, whether they be Democrats, Republicans, all that. If they put it all into context. Again, we're not a literate enough population. We don't pay attention to civics enough. I'm not saying we don't have other problems. There's a big right-wing, propaganda apparatus, but the mainstream media collaborates in all of this. And it's that kind of crap. Oh, he's mentioned a few times. No, he's mentioned everywhere. He's mentioned as somebody who was alone with one of the victims. He's mentioned as somebody who they weren't worried was going to say anything, who wasn't barking like a dog, which even hearing that makes me upset. He wasn't mentioned, as they didn't mention that, again, as in there that Epstein said that like there's literally, he's evil. There's no redeeming qualities about him. Epstein said that Epstein during his presidency, there are at least 2 emails out there that said that he's literally crazy, or Epstein was like, he's lost his mind. And I mean, I think after it may have been the Muslim ban, this is context. This is important. These are things, I'm sorry if it makes you uncomfortable, guys. And like, you're taking a side, but you're not. You're telling people the truth, which you don't do.
And the truth is, I also was, shocked. There were some mainstream reporters who say, oh, the Senate will never even take this up. This will never get through the Senate. And these are some of the same mainstream reporters who say, oh, this is never going anywhere in the House. And I don't understand, with all the editors and all the restrictions on certain journalists, how is it that they allow some of the reporters to somehow look into their magic ball and be able to tell us, use their psychic powers, what will or will not happen that hasn't happened yet? I mean, that's so stupid. And if you're going to say, oh, well, Senator X or Senator Y says this is going to be, that's one thing, attribute it. But for just some reporter to stand up there on the White House lawn or Capitol Hill and say, oh, the Senate is, this is dubious, the Senate's not going to take this up. Come on, really? That's why so many people hate the mainstream media and hate.
Well, that's the thing, right? You're making these negative predictions. Yeah, you're making these negative predictions with no proof, no insight really to offer. Like, you're just hearing conventional wisdom around your little cocktail party crowd, and that's what you're repeating. But you won't tell us the actual factual horrific things, like the fact that he spent a couple hours with one of these victims. That seems pretty relevant. Is that, I mean, am I right on that, David? What are your thoughts?
Yeah. Yeah, no, I mean, not only that, not only the emails, but it's sort of like, for whatever reason, and there's a lot of people who say, oh, well, suddenly the Epstein files just sort of came out of nowhere. A guy like Michael Wolff has been screaming from the mountaintop for years about Jeffrey Epstein, trying to get people to pay attention. We've been paying attention for the last, couple of years. A couple other independent media have as well. But there's some sort of, it's almost like Michael Wolff is kryptonite to the mainstream media. They won't even book him. They won't even mention him, except it's to criticize Michael Wolff's role in advising Jeffrey Epstein when he was, becoming a friend with Jeffrey Epstein to get information for the book that Michael Wolff was. So all of a sudden, the only mention of Michael Wolff is criticism of Michael Wolff's role as a journalist. And the mainstream media has literally ignored stuff that Michael Wolff had said publicly over the last year about the lewd Trump photos and half-naked teenage girls sitting on Donald Trump's lap and the stain on Trump's pants, and that Michael Wolff saw these photos. So for the media to now say, oh, well, there's no criminality, it's just some suggestions of Donald Trump from Epstein, you guys are totally missing this.
Right. And if you want to question, whether a journalist should be giving advice to Epstein, absolutely. I'm not sitting here defending that. It doesn't mean what the man is reporting that he saw isn't true. It doesn't mean when you see these emails between people, the law even allows for, when you see co-conspirators talking to each other, the law takes that to be considered as truthful, because why would they be lying, right? These are sort of, hearsay exceptions, I guess. I'm not a lawyer, but there are some of those, kind of like if you say something right before you're about to die, they kind of assume you're being honest. And so they're discounting all of this stuff. It's like, well, Michael Wolff seemed to be, we don't like him. He seems kind of like he's out for profit and he's advising Epstein. So we're going to take everything he said and just throw it out. Wow, how conveniently that helps the Trump family and everybody around them. I mean, I'm sorry, but, Sammy the Bull Gravano put away Gotti. He murdered 21 people, I believe it was. He was a hitman.
Right. Well, and thank goodness, I mean, this was the thing that amazed me. I mean, for all the stuff that a lot of the media does, which drives me crazy, there were a couple reporters in yesterday's White House press briefing who got it. And so when there's Caroline Leavitt saying, oh, the emails show that Donald Trump did nothing wrong, the follow-up question, I think from Weijia Jiang at CBS was, okay, well then, why is the Attorney General, the FBI Director, the Deputy Attorney General, why are they lobbying Lauren Boebert right now to try to get Lauren Boebert off of the discharge petition? If Donald Trump did nothing wrong, what are you afraid of?
Why'd they apparently offer Nancy Mace $54 million or whatever it was for a race for governor in South Carolina? And even Nancy Mace was smart enough to realize, again, I've said this before, when you have these wave type elections and people hold you accountable for these kinds of things, there's no amount of money that can overcome anger.
Yeah.
You can spend all the money you want on your own turnout. They don't need to spend money on turnout, just like this past election we saw. Everybody turned the hell out.
Yeah.
And I mean, and since then, it's been joined by Warren Davidson, Don Bacon, and Eli Crane.
Well, and there's rumblings. I mean, Massey said last night that there are several others that have sort of told him privately they're not ready to go public yet, but that when the vote happens in the next week or two, they're going to be, I think Ro Khanna was saying there may be 40 or 50. My sense is that Ro Khanna is is putting the numbers down so that when it ends up being 100, Ro Khanna can
Lower
say,
expectations.
Which is, the whole thing about political expectations. We're not on the political expectation game. That's why I reported last week, that some Republicans are thinking it's 100. Will it be 100? If it's short of 100, does that mean it's a White House win because David Shuster and Cliff Schuster said it's going to be 100? Well, we're not in that game, but I give some credit to Ro Khanna and some of the others, and all of the rumblings are that this is a stampede. This is
what? If it makes them feel better, David, that you and I are wrong, and there's only 95 and not 100, right. I'm good with that. I'm pretty good with that. What I would say, as calling some of these folks out, and then we've got Egberto Willies, our awesome guest I see has entered the room, so we're going to let him in. But of all these are all these sort of MAGA breakaways from the far right, except for Don Bacon. He's the only one who's sort of a center right, although more right these days. He's given in too much. Conservative who supported Ukraine and whatever is not MAGA. There's maybe a half dozen to a dozen others of them. Where the hell are they? Right? Where's what's his name? Murphy, the one in the suburbs of Philly. Where like these other ones that walk around and pretend that they're still reasonable conservatives. Where are they? Why is Bacon the only one of that crew who's spoken out, and the rest of them are like far right characters? It's pathetic, really. If you can't do it on a subject like this, it's coming, guys. The freight train is going to run you over. So maybe you should think about getting on it. I don't know.
And the Democrats, I have to say, we criticize the Democrats and the party and what they did with the fold and caving in on the shutdown. But the way they have handled sort of the rollout and the press and the sort of the buildup of the Epstein files, I think was sort of brilliant. Whether it's, some leaking some stuff last week, whether it's putting out the emails yesterday, whether it's sort of sprinkling it out as they're going to be doing over the next, couple weeks, and every day or every other day, there's another email or there's another development, and sort of spacing it out so the story stays in the news.
That's what you do. No, that's
brilliant
PR strategy. And I would hope, I'll say, and I swear to you, Egberto, we're saying hello in 1 second.
Egberto,
because you're awesome. But I would just say that from a PR standpoint, again, from a help, like the victims getting justice standpoint, other stuff, this may not be the right way to do it, and that has to be taken into account. All right, like we're in the business also of representing, making sure people get justice, but if you're looking at purely from a PR point of view, you would just do this up through the election. Just leak a little more. Just keep it out there the entire time. Egberto, how are you? Welcome.
I am great, and man, I love the energy. I like watching you guys. But man, today you came with like substantial more energy, man. But that is great. I don't know, but Cliff, I can't remember several years ago. I think it was either Arizona or Philadelphia, Radio Row, Netroots Nation. Remember that?
Yes, we met. And like I know we met briefly, and like God, it was a while ago. I wasn't at the one in Philly, so it was probably Arizona.
Yeah.
It was a while, and I remembered, and I was like, I'm pretty sure I've met him before, but you got to remember, Egberto, I'm an old guy now, you know what I mean? Just an old suburban dad, like I barely remember what I had for breakfast. I have to get, it's challenging, but no, I knew we met, but I didn't even remember it was at Netroots. I knew somewhere I'd said hello to you, but I didn't really feel like I knew you well. And
it was on Radio Row. So you know how things are crazy during those times. It was great. But also David, I think David was independent even as he was on network, because I used to follow those tweets, right?
Yeah.
And I remember that tweet that he blasted out there that I wrote an entire blog on it with the Karl Rove and that whole stuff.
Yeah.
I did an entire post on that. Those were the good days, man.
Egberto, you're way too kind. Thank you so much, though. I really appreciate it. And look, a lot of the stuff, there's sort of a familiar pattern to a lot of this stuff. The CIA leak scandal, the Monica Lewinsky scandal, there are grand juries, they investigate, there are trials, you try to pressure people into cooperating and testifying against somebody else. There are witness statements, there's evidence that's collected, and there's all sorts of protocols for how this stuff should be sort of released. I feel like we're in sort of uncharted territory this time around, though, because I can't recall any other sort of investigation, special counsel investigation, where there's been this sort of effort to let's put everything out there before there's a report or before there's before the case is completely wrapped up.
Well, why would you not do that when you have a corrupt judiciary, right?
Yep.
If the judiciary is corrupt, you got to throw everything out there and let the people be the judge of it, because as it stands with Trump, the guy's got immunity, the guy's got all these things working in his favor. And you know what?
It seems that these days, not to get too gross, but it feels a little bit like John Roberts is sort of walking around after Trump carrying toilet paper just in case Trump needs cleanup on aisle. But we'll leave that one too. Anything like the law stated quite clearly, you have to feed people, which is, wow, we're at that point. You have to give people their SNAP benefits. He tries not to. The court tells him, you have to give people your SNAP benefits. It's right there. Do it. And of course, again, he appeals because who would want to feed people? And then the Supreme Court gives it a stay. They're such a, I hope you don't mind this stuff, but here and there I will use language, Egberto. They're such a bunch of fucking jokers. They really, they have so...
I agree.
Exposed themselves. They're not judges in any, they are Federalist Society drones is what they are. They were trained as Republican operatives by the Federalist Society. And the last of sort of the ones that were actual judges who you could say, okay, I disagree with this judge. I think this judge is terrible and wrong on this. I think Judge Kennedy got this wrong or whatever, but he was an actual judge. These people, these more recent ones, they are not judges. They may swear their oath to Opus Dei. I don't know, but they certainly aren't to the Constitution. And so, sure, you're right. We have to get everything out in front of people. But I think also, to get to David's point, and I'll kick it back to you, Egberto. The bigger deal here also is when you're talking about a special counsel was in this kind of thing is it'd be like with Iran-Contra, like who was involved? Was it Casper Weinberger, which, by the way, of course he was, and he was pardoned by Trump, by Bush Sr. And, was it Haig? Was it whatever? We're now talking about complicity of an entire party. And it doesn't mean every single member of the party, but like dozens of members of Congress, at least, we're talking about. We're talking about, numerous members of the judiciary. We're talking about people we've found out, were being paid by Russia to do their commentary, your Benny Johnsons and your whatever. This thing is goes so much deeper. And again, this just follows all of the patterns you may have seen where the EU just passed this new set of principles because they're, Operation Shield or Defense or whatever it is. They're realizing that they can't rely on us anymore. Like they realized it a while ago. And they have to fight disinformation and all this because they understand what they're up against with Russia's hybrid warfare against them. And here, we don't even know. We don't know who's controlled by Russia, who's controlled by China, who's sharing it because Trump wants them to, who's sharing it because Peter Thiel wants them to. It's a mess, but the whole right, to get this right eventually, there needs to be a Truth and Reconciliation Committee, which I believe Eric Swalwell has proposed, because there's so much criminality, whether it's trafficking, but also on the financial front, on the corrupt practices in Congress. It's just how we let ourselves do this again is just unbelievable to me.
And
sorry, that was a big speech. I make them.
No.
Go ahead, Egberto.
Let me tell you, man. Here's what I find offensive. It's only been 10 months, just 10 months, where all this damage was done in 10 months. You know how long it's going to take to recover from this? When we get a chance to recover, it's going to be forever. But to even nail a bit further, the fact that the rest of the world is disassociating with the United States. I'm originally from Central America, and to watch what we hear for news here.
Right, did you hear the Colombian president?
Oh my God! Did you see that?
Did you see that, David?
White House of pedophiles. Amazing. Yeah,
he was defending his neighbor Venezuela against. Really, more than that, defending that. And I think David was one of the first people I saw do this. So credit where David, you just called it what it was: murder. I mean, we are murdering people
Yeah.
in international waters. There is literally, we are violating international law. We are violating American law and our Constitution. There is literally no standard of evidence. There's no congressional input. They're just bombing sailing, like sailboats and whatever the hell they feel like. And shockingly, somebody else from Central America, from Colombia, probably senses a lot of it has to do with the skin color of those who it's happening to, is pissed. I don't blame him.
Well, that is standard modus operandi, right? I mean, there are certain lives that matter and certain lives that don't. That has always been United States policy. In Panama, we had no problems bombing the holy you know what out of Panama City and Colón to get Noriega.
That's a good point.
And
You
Noriega
forget,
was
though,
just
you forget that Grenada was a very serious threat.
oh boy, tell me about Grenada.
If we hadn't gone into Grenada to take people, to get people to stop looking at Iran-Contra, would we even still be here as America with what Grenada was building up?
That is funny. That is funny.
I have to be sarcastic at times because it's so utterly fucking ridiculous. Some of the things that these people justify. And again, as David and I've talked about, corporate media, it's only gotten worse as Republicans have gotten more fascist, and those two things have kind of reinforced each other. But even back then, even back in Reagan's day, that he could be like, oh, there are a couple medical students there we had to rescue. Yes, that's what that was about. Totally. That's what that was about.
It is fantastic. But I tell you what, one of the things that I was saying earlier about the countries around the world, right? We really, as America, man, we got everything if we really want it, right? But what you're seeing around the world, man, is that countries like China and India, they've just about said to hell with us, and they're living their own lives on the outside, and we're completely outside of pocket. And we as a people don't know what's going on in Peru or Chile or Argentina and all these other places.
If we even know those places exist, which I'd love to see a poll on that, because we're not teaching civics anymore. It's international affairs aren't important.
Well, I think a great point that the rest of the world is recognizing things about the United States that our own citizens, our own media can't recognize. And to sort of bring it back to, we were talking a moment ago about the Epstein case. One of the things that so bothered me, and I think this sort of ties in, Egberto, to what you were talking about with the, with what's happening in Venezuela and the bombing of the boats. So the media was so obsessed yesterday, consumed with the Epstein files, because they were looking for evidence of Donald Trump's criminality. Yet you go back to any other story, talk about, the bombing of the boats, talk about throwing out due process, trampling on the Constitution. Donald Trump is engaged in criminality, his administration, every day of the week. But the media doesn't want to bring the same energy and enthusiasm to that, because I guess maybe because it doesn't involve sex.
It's like a needle in a haystack finding that Trump criminality. It's so difficult to spot.
Right.
David and Cliff, you guys have here that you can pull if you want. I ain't got none. I can't pull here. What David just said is magic.
Maybe you already did pull all your hair.
Maybe, right? But what David just said is magic. Imagine if we were to treat everything else that this guy is doing criminally as we want to try to find something in the Epstein files. We didn't have to wait for the Epstein's files.
Right.
There is so much out there that we could be saying criminal here, criminal there, criminal everywhere that you step. But you're right.
There's an emoluments clause. Again, it's like, it actually exists. I've read it. I know it's there. They can't just sort of cut it out of every version and make it disappear. So, pick what you want to talk about. But if you want to just, the moment, Tim Cook or Tim Apple walked in and gave him a 24-karat gold gift, that's when the police should have come in and arrested Donald Trump when he accepted it, because he broke the emoluments clause.
Yes.
The minute he accepted a Qatari jet, they should have come in and this is, it's like what they started doing in that first term, and we all just kind of forgot about it or let it go with the Hatch Act. I mean, you've got Department of Homeland Security, you've got Department of Justice. These guys are tweeting out partisan, ludicrous things daily that are illegal. It is illegal for these departments to be doing this stuff. And we've just, the media just fucking shrugs at it.
Yeah, the media sort of normalized it. We've sort of sane washed it of, oh, that's just Donald Trump. When what I think we needed from the beginning was a far more aggressive media that would say, you know what, Donald Trump wants to sue my news organization or this one, fine, but we're going to call a spade, and we're going to be fearless about reporting what is criminal and what Donald Trump is doing. And I'll be the first to say, Donald Trump does so much shit on a weekly basis. It is hard to keep track of the Qatari plane, the White House destruction, immigration, the Epstein files, the emoluments, the crypto schemes, the selling off of the new ball. I mean, it goes on and on and on. But the media can't just sort of throw up our hands and say, oh, well, there's just too much. We're just not going to pay any attention to any of it. We're just going to treat them as if it's normal. You can't do that.
It was planned, though. Steve Bannon actually said that's what they were going to do.
Yeah, flood the zone with shit, right?
Flood the zone, yeah.
But you know what you could do, again, and I know this would be very tough for our corporate media friends, because you'd have to do this strange stuff like give people context and nuance. But what you could do is keep a running count so that each one is added to the older ones. And every time he does something, which is about every 6 hours probably, and I'm probably being generous, I'm sorry, but you keep an ongoing list on the manner in which this man has ignored, broken, the law, the Constitution, international law. I mean, you can't just be like, we're going to write about it, and that's always the thing. Well, we wrote about it. Great. You wrote about it 2 or 3 times, and then you let it go away, and it's ludicrous because, again, he's being protected right now in the end in like a mob-like fashion by the Supreme Court. And I'm sorry, but a bunch of these things, even with the Supreme Court's ridiculous definition of immunity, that much like Citizens United and much like,
McCutcheon,
about 10 other decisions that they've come across or that they've issued, has literally nothing to do with our history, is historically false, is utter garbage, and made up by these so-called originalists. But at least, what we could do is try to within that scope of immunity that's ridiculous. First of all, keep a historical record of all this stuff, because that's a bullshit decision that will be undone at some point. But second of all, a number of these things he's done have not been within the scope of his official, officially being president, and he could be prosecuted for still, even under the ridiculous Supreme Court doctrine they have here. But they won't even do that.
There's something that you said, Cliff, that I kind of want to pass and ask David, because being someone that was inside mainstream media, I find a lot of good mainstream media reporters. I'm not talking about what they do on TV. I'm talking about what they write and so forth. And in fact, I can take a lot of the work that they do a little bit of research and context, and come out with something that people can do a lot better with, right? But it seems like when it comes to what they're putting out there, like there's something of a damper on them. Is that what did you have to go through that at all, or what is the whole?
I think it's changed through the years. I think it has certainly gotten worse. I'm back when I was, go back 15 years to when I was at MSNBC. We still had some pretty good resources, and we would still have lots of camera crews and material coming out from all over the world. And so we were able to cover a lot, and we were able to spend a lot of time covering story like the CIA leak case and Scooter Libby and Dick Cheney, all that kind of stuff. I think the networks and the cable channels have gone through so many cutbacks in the last 15 years that all of their producers and correspondents are being forced to churn out the same amount of content, but with just fewer resources. So they don't have the time to do, the reporting, or even, I think there's still to your point, there's still some people at the broadcast networks and cable channels who do a wonderful job of crafting a package, of crafting a story, of using sound and video to do a really compelling sort of narrative about what happened today. But instead of, 2 minutes that they were allowed to use of airtime 15 years ago, now it's okay, do it in 45 seconds and cut out the verbs. And so it's just the whole, there's just less time. There's less airtime for people. Everything has sort of been dumbed down. And there's not a lot of an opportunity now for even people at the network and cable level to say, hey, I'm going to take the story that everybody's talking about. I'm going to move it forward. I'm going to carry the ball forward, which is what you're supposed to be doing in journalism. Instead, it's, well, here's the headlines. Well, we can all get the headlines now, on with a couple of clicks, and we can go to, if we get more information now from shows like yours and shows like ours than you can get from watching the evening newscast.
Yeah. I mean, look, I didn't work at MSNBC or CNN in the manner David did. I ironically was at Sinclair Media as
Oh, really?
Well, I was the liberal analyst arguing with conservatives during the 2004 election, and spent enough time going and kind of like I was invited on MSNBC and Fox a lot to debate and that kind of thing. Now, I never saw this at MSNBC in the manner in which I did at Fox, which again wouldn't shock everybody. I've been critical of MSNBC at times. And again, it is important to state what you said, Egberto, that there are some great journalists in there. I try to say that all the time. To me, the corporate media entities are horrible. And they probably get people who otherwise would be better people to do worse things or leave journalism. So the worst are left, or, but there are some very good journalists within. Yes. But overall, I mean, I've got distinct memories of going, and again, it's probably around the time David's talking about 15 years ago, going, into to do a debate on something that was supposed to be a debate, let's say on Fox and Friends or someplace like that, and then saying, "Oh, we changed the topic. We're going to talk about this. We need you to take this position so you can debate." I'm like, I don't believe that, so I'm not taking that position. Like, I'm not your dancing monkey. I'm not a freaking, entertainer here. I actually believe things. I know, crazy concept. And that's what I'm going to debate. I'm not going to make up something I believe. And so that, I mean, it already was becoming that to me, where a lot of it was just bullshit entertainment, bread and circuses for the masses. And I just think, sadly, that kind of mentality, it takes a lot fewer resources. You don't have to spend as much on investigative journalism. You don't have to plan and produce as much because it's almost like reality TV, and you can cut a lot more staff, and it just makes everything easier. Let's just put two people on the screen at each other, about who disagree and whatever. That's why one of the reasons I stopped participating in some of that, because I decided at some point, some of it's because I moved out here and, they don't know anything exists but New York, DC, and maybe LA. But but also some of it for me was like, when I get invited on here and there, because I write a piece somebody just got, likes, like probably a few years back on Lawrence's show, O'Donnell, who I respect a lot and think
I
is
love
very
Lawrence.
good. I will do that here and there, but for the most part, like, I don't want to do it because I'm not going to go on and have some bullshit conversation. If you want me to come on and talk about something real that I know about, that I believe in, but like, don't ask me about vaccines. I know they work because I've studied history and I understand basics, but have a doctor on.
Well,
or
and
maybe put a doctor in Health and Human Services. That's an idea.
That is such a great point, because if you look at the evolution of, say, cable news, when I was starting out at CNN, for example, back in the early 1990s, if CNN was doing a story about France, we would find America's most foremost French scholar to put on the air. If we were talking about the economy, we would find the economic scholar. We would literally go to them to talk to them, or we would invite them into a studio and would send them a satellite truck so that we had the biggest expert we could find to talk about the given subject, the person who was most informed. That has evolved to now it's, oh, well, who's nearest to our New York studio who's a good talker who can, as Cliff points out, take the argument of B, and we can match them against another good talker who can come cheaply into our studio and take the argument of A, and we put them together, and there's our conflict, and audiences love conflict. And so the audience is fed. It's almost like they're fed some sweetener, some candy, but they're not actually fed context, expertise, information that is truly reliable.
I interviewed a guy from Bold Progressive. I can't recall his name right now. And in effect, that's what he's talking about as far as what progressives are going to have to do, in as much as we don't necessarily like to do that. But that is find the boogeyman, find that conflict to put your point across. It's sad that you have to do that, but it looks like that may be where we're going. But Cliff said something about New York, the coast, pretty much New York and LA, etc. And I mean, you're so right? We are not getting there. There's so just too often the way the media is run today. it leaves out going to meet a whole lot of people where they are. And
Yep.
I think you nailed it when you said that.
Well, remember, after 2016, I mean, again, it's like, look, guys, Trump lost the popular vote by 2 million votes. Okay. He won Michigan by like, what was it, 10,000 votes?
Yeah, very few. Yeah.
Wisconsin, something similar. Like one of those places he won by like 3 or 4,000 votes. Oh my God, he won Pennsylvania by 65 or 70. So now he's some avatar of the heartland who understands everywhere out here. And they chose the political paleontologists chose Ohio to be their little laboratory. They're like, let's go do some Jane Goodall shit, and let's go in this diner in Lima, Ohio. We spoke to 3 Nazis and I'm like, why don't you come speak to me? I'm somebody who grew up on the East Coast, and I chose to move to Cincinnati, and I love it here. Like, why don't you go find some people? Like, you're acting like, you're just forwarding this stereotype that we're all that person. And clearly, even though that was the first election where Ohio wasn't a swing state, I think we lost that one by 7 points or so, 7.5 points to Trump.
Yeah.
Well, if you lost by 7 or 7.5 points, I have news for you. That means I think it was 1% for whoever 53, 46 or whatever it is. That means 46% of us voted that time for Hillary Clinton. Maybe that means that's enough people that you should go speak to some of them too. I don't know, crazy idea. And that's what's so frustrating. Like, it wasn't like just everything is red or blue. It wasn't like, oh, that happened. Well, now Ohio's red, so everybody's red there. And you're just like, what do you? I mean, they simplify it. It's so stupid. And the problem is it makes people stupider.
Right.
Because that's how they end up seeing things.
I try to do that on my Pacifica Network program. We try to sort of like, look, I am as left as one can get, right? But at the same time, we try to get a lot of the people, MAGA folks, into the conversation and all of that. And believe it or not, by the time that stuff has ended many a times, these guys are maybe in agreement with you. They may have taught you how to talk to them. All these different machinations occur just from talking to the folks, man. And not just looking at them like they're some sort of aliens, or for them to look at us like we're some sort of aliens,
And that common humanity, I think, is so important if we are going to be able to dig out of this hole that we're in, that there are a lot more things, I believe. If you talk to somebody who's a MAGA supporter or whatnot, and you can get them away from a couple of issues, you can find some other issues where there's actually agreement. And the polls also, we've talked about this before, back it up in terms of universal health care and making college tuition more affordable and
family and medical leave. The one I always point to, 85% support it. I have to believe there's including a majority of Republicans, have to be a lot of MAGA folks in there who support.
Yeah, and there are a lot of MAGA folks who now talk about trying to take away the undue influence that corporations and big money have. So there's commonality, but I think we've all been sort of stereotyped to such an extent that, to your point, we're treated like aliens from like a totally different universe, that we have absolutely nothing in common with somebody who may disagree with us on some political
It's psychological warfare of a sort, David. The problem is we don't accept it. It's in all these red states and purple states and whatever. Whenever the issues that we stand for are put on the ballot, they win with like 70% or more. Abortion rights won here with 60% of the vote in Ohio. It's just they have an apparatus that we have never tried in any real way to match, that just has constant dehumanizing language being used about Democrats to the point of where people almost, they do see us as space aliens. And that's probably maybe one of the better things they see us as. They see us as the kind of dehumanizing sort of, people forget that the radio stations in Rwanda were broadcasting about the Tutsis, calling them cockroaches when they wanted to encourage the Hutus to kill them. They were dehumanizing them. Hitler was referring to Jews as rats. It's like when Trump talked about some of the immigrants as an infestation. These are things in history that inevitably lead to that. When you can get someone to see anybody else as less than human, that's where the danger zone comes in. And so it's that propaganda. They still believe in a lot of the things we believe, but we're split up because so many of them have been propagandized. And that's why our lack of willingness to take on in any real way, the way Western Europe just did, disinformation. And guess what, everybody? They've got free speech. They banned Nazi symbols in Germany, but somehow still have free speech. You know, the way that we refuse to take on, you know, some of the mass kind of propaganda orgs that hide behind media credentials when they're nothing related to that. They're just vast propaganda networks. And the way that, like, you know, again, anybody's free to express their opinion, but you know, why the folks on our side have done nothing when they've seen the effects of what that's done. They've done nothing to counter it. You know, we have some people invest in Media Matters and Center for American Progress and Planned Parenthood, but nothing compared to what the infrastructure that exists on the right. I'll just end that little thing by saying there was a time, and it wasn't that long ago, where Frank Church got elected, I believe it was in Idaho. George McGovern got elected in South Dakota. I want you to try to imagine that happening today. And it couldn't, because Democrats are all space aliens to them. They would listen to what McGovern had to say back then. They would listen to what Church had to say, and they might elect them. But now, just having a D next to your name means that, like, Dan Osborne thinks he has to run as an independent in Nebraska because just worrying about having a D next to him, because they've so poisoned that word, Democrat. And that is just, we need to fight back on that. But, you know, there are other ways to do it, but we need some damn infrastructure. I mean, we're building it ourselves, I guess, here at Substack and at YouTube and other places, you know? But
I'm glad you said that we're building it ourselves, because that's exactly what so far a lot of us have been able to do here on Substack, and galvanizing a whole bunch of folks from a, you know, when you unite the sum total of all our audiences, we are actually getting up there. But I tell you something, if we, sometimes I wonder, and you know, when I'm in the darkness in my studio and I'm thinking outside of the box, if a lot of this is by design. I mean, if some of the folks, and even let's say the establishment version of the Democratic Party, if that we don't have that infrastructure, because as you point out, 65%, north of 65% of people want progressive values, which means if we didn't have all that misinformation out there, and if we actually fought back, we could get these big, not pluralities, but big majorities. And just maybe those who are funded by the corporate sector, which are both parties, may try to attenuate that coming together. I don't know. I think that's a possibility.
And that's a great point that gets right to what Cliff and I were talking about yesterday, that maybe one of the advantages of the Democrats caving in the government shutdown, it is so energized and infuriated progressives that it's made it abundantly clear some aspects of the Democratic Party who feel beholden to moderation or centrists or corporations or whatnot need to be removed, need to be cleaned out. The Democratic Party needs a fresh start. And so sometimes, I guess there's that old saying that, you know, when humanity is at its lowest point, that's when you really find out what humanity is all about. And we see the opportunity in front of us now because, in some ways, of the mistakes that Democratic establishment figures have made.
Well, and you're seeing it because, let's face it, I mean, if you want to take a look at those 8 figures that we're talking about that voted for it, 2 of them are retiring, right? 2 of them can be replaced by legitimate fighters. A bunch of the other ones can easily, very easily, you know, they I don't care if it's 2028 or 2030. You know, the key is to not forget. Not forget when you were betrayed. That's when the other ones are up for re-election. They may just not run for re-election. In the meantime, what we're doing keeps growing. And we are showing that, hey, you know, Substack and some of these other places are like a hack, you know, where we don't need the billions of dollars. Because I would say, you know, and why I pointed to Substack is a great example is, you know, email storage ain't cheap. You know, if you've got an email list and a subscription list the size that we have right now, that would cost us $15,000 a month probably just to keep that there, and they do that for us, right? Like some of the stuff that used to be barriers to entry no longer are, and so we have to take that and we have to run with that because, again, I don't think the Democrats would be so scared to have the 8, and the rest of them and have their heads down trying to hide from everybody or whatever if they were just relying on how they would be talked about in corporate media. Maybe some folks on MSNBC would go after them. Fox applauds them, I'm sure. CNN, it's probably 2-1 in favor of them. On talk radio around the country, they're probably heroes, whatever. But guess what? Independent media out there, podcasts, Substack, YouTube, TikTok, we're the ones giving them hell. And, before any of this stuff even happened, Chuck Schumer, come on, he was behind it. Let's all be adults here.
Mhm.
I'm not going to even go into all the rest of the evidence. I'm just going to point out that his number 2, Dick Durbin, was there voting for it. And that does not happen in Washington. Your number 2 doesn't say, I'm going to go do this. I've always listened to what you've told me, but I'm just going to go do this and not listen to you. And it just doesn't happen. He would do what Schumer told him to do. Schumer's behind this. And the interesting thing is AOC was already up by 19 points on him. Back in.
You think she's going to run?
Well, I'm not sure, but I was going to say she was up 19 in a poll they did somewhere in the time. I feel like it was in the summer. What do you think that number is now after this? My guess is she's up 30. I think she wants to run for president, so I'm not sure. Yeah. But my point to you is she may be the most charismatic out of any of them, but New York's a big state. If you think you can't find 5 other people that politically can beat Schumer to can pulverize him in a Democratic primary, I promise you they're there. Besides AOC, and then there's the one I've been talking about that I've been so impressed by. Tell me where to sign up if I could convince Chris Murphy to be our leader now. He right away came out and said that they were betrayed, that it would make Trump stronger, that it was terrible. The kinds of things about his fellow Democrats, and you could tell implying Schumer somewhat even more so because they're states next door to each other and have dealt with each other on regional caucus type stuff. And he already had done this, but I'm going to read this. He went to New Hampshire, which I'll admit upsets me because that kind of tells you what he's looking at. I wish he wanted to be minority or majority leader. I think he wants to obviously be president. But, our job right now is to fight. We have to show people who they are and who we are. And it does involve a level of fight and sometimes a level of confrontation that can be uncomfortable. Democrats have hurt themselves by relying on overwrought, consultant-driven messaging. What was our message on prescription drugs? Probably you never remembered, Murphy said, before mocking Democratic talking points about the bill at the time. It was that we're going to use the bulk purchasing powers of Medicare to negotiate down the price of the 10 most. And then he stopped. He's like, you've lost it, right? You've already lost people. In other words, we're not messaging to the point. We didn't message, when it came to that. The fact that we gave in to Trump, strengthened Trump, weakened us, all you have to say is cap the price of every single drug in this country and limit the drug industry profits. Done. Easy message.
Increase the maximum for Social Security. Problem solved. A lot of things to be done.
Yeah. So he floods the zone. We have to flood the zone. There's this idea in Democratic politics that you have to sort of preserve and hoard your capital and then wait to pounce. No, we need to be posting not 1 video a day, but 5, 6, 10 videos a day. In other words, Chris Murphy gets it. I could keep reading like this. He understands it. But the problem, of course, is that he isn't our leader. I wish he were. There are others in there. Tammy Duckworth has been phenomenal. Chris Van Hollen has been phenomenal. There are a few. I know there are others I'm missing, and I don't mean to. But there are others who can do it. If Chris Murphy's goal is to run for president, then maybe some of these other figures we're talking about will step up. But somebody, again, remember, nothing like everybody always uses the frog boiling in the pot metaphor for fascism. But I always point out that metaphor works for any kind of culture. No culture changes like that. You slowly move in that direction. Before, Democrats wouldn't speak out against other Democrats. Now you got Chris Murphy doing it. You had Tammy Duckworth. You had some others do it. You had Ro Khanna call on Schumer to step down as leader. What's that going to lead to? Next time, they're going to go a little further and a little further. And what you're going to see is Chuck Schumer is going to get challenged at some point. We're not there yet, but we're going to get there.
I think it's so important. I tell you one other thing that I'd like to add. When you talk about how Democrats are going to campaign or go on, I think if you take a look at the crosstabs for Mandami, they should pass that to every single Democrat and say, this is how you reach people. This is how you reach people. I'm waiting for some Democrat to step up and say, this is the template for reaching people, because there's nothing better than actually seeing it in action. People look at New York and say, New York is a blue state, so we expect that. This is the same state that elected the city that elected Bloomberg, and also a state that elected Pataki. I think we should remember.
Listen,
that.
I lived there, and I had to live through, when I was a kid, Al fucking D'Amato. So
God,
make it through that.
Yes,
and I think it's also important to state. You brought up New York City, but we won by 24 points, 2 public utilities positions each in Georgia.
In Georgia, yeah.
I'm going to talk about this till the end of time. I'm sorry. Bucks County DA in Pennsylvania. We had elected a Democrat before as DA. It just happened to be 1891 the last time we did it. I don't think there are many of us here that were alive then, if I'm correct. And here's something else that's important. Okay, we need to all come together. That was something else that I didn't read that part that Chris Murphy said there, that we can't have litmus tests. We need to come together as a large group. I believe economic issues can unite us. We should fight for everyone's personal freedoms, but we need to speak to the largest audience possible. And I say this because right after the Democrats folded, Mikey Sherrill, who ran a great campaign in New Jersey, who is more moderate than Mamdani, and it just shows he's to the left of her, but she's probably center left, somewhere like that. Not only did she run a great campaign utilizing influencers, not wasting all her money on damn expensive TV in Pennsylvania, in New Jersey, to advertise in New York City and Pennsylvania and in Philadelphia is ridiculous. Yeah. She used a whole lot of influencers as part of her campaign. A lot of people will call her a moderate, but you know what? Her response to that Democratic sellout was as fierce as any other I've seen. Yeah. She said, I didn't just fight this whole campaign so you could throw a bunch of people off of healthcare in my state and all of that. So we have to keep in mind, wherever we are on that left to sort of, center left or even center spectrum, if we're Democrats, how we campaign, the issues we emphasize, I really do believe we agree on most things. There may be a couple differences here and there. Why don't we focus on all the things we agree on and stop fascism? That seems like a better idea to me than fighting.
I agree. And it's going to take everybody coming together to be able to stop fascism as well. I mean, it's a lot of work to build something. It's very easy to destroy things, as we know. It takes a lot of work to build things back together, to put the pieces back together. And we all have our areas of expertise and the things that we're passionate about, and we all have our concerns. But at a certain point, we all have to say, okay, where's the common ground that we as Democrats and progressives can find, and how can we, focus on the issues that will move the country forward, while at the same time stopping this tyrant. So,
yep. And, the people around him who shoot puppies in the face and
I think they're the most
write letters about what terrible
Speaking of people around him, Sean Hannity. Egberto, did you see Stephanie Miller on Sean Hannity last night?
Ooh. No, I didn't, but I thought David was Cliff was going to play that. I was hoping to hear that. I heard it was Boss.
Cliff, can you play it? It was remarkable.
I think Cliff can play it. Cliff may screw it up. I can't believe I'm talking about myself in the third person, by the way. Please, folks, please don't take that.
For everybody who doesn't know, Stephanie Miller, she is one of the progressive radio stars and has been for many, many years. She's got syndicated shows all over the place.
On Pacifica Network.
And Sean Hannity, of course, for all of you who don't watch Fox, and I don't blame you, Sean Hannity is one of their lead primetime stars who's been with the network since the beginning. So I was frankly shocked that Sean Hannity was willing to put Stephanie Miller on, because usually the theory at Fox is you put on a doofus for a Democrat, somebody who doesn't speak well, so that the Republican can always win the argument. Stephanie is as sharp and talented as you will find in broadcasting. Watch this.
All right, so I do have a question. I tried to get an answer out of you on radio. Okay. The question is, when did you notice Joe Biden's cognitive decline? And don't change the subject and deflect. When did you really notice it?
Well, I think it was through all of the times that Donald Trump has fallen asleep in public and talked about, magnets getting wet in the last few,
oh my gosh.
My mom had dementia, so I recognize it. And
this is not, it's a very good deflection. You're a professional.
You know what else is great about
Biden's
decline is that Trump is all over the Epstein files, and I'm wondering if they're going to release those. Are you covering that tonight?
Not really, because the woman that apparently they're talking about is the one that said he was a gentleman and everything.
Listen to him try to BS his way out of it.
The person that had a grudge was the guy that got thrown out of Mar-a-Lago 25 years ago. And by the way, when you get thrown out of a club in
watch her at the end here.
That's kind of a big deal. And it's very humiliating and embarrassing. And he was a convicted pedophile. So I'm not exactly putting a lot of gospel truth in what he said.
Trump was mad that he was stealing his girls, but
Did you hear that? Trump was mad that he was stealing his girls, but
it's true. It's in the emails.
He was, but the way she even said that, like he's mad that he was stealing his girls, but what? Like she just the sarcasm. I counted 3 different times in that one segment that she owned Hannity. If you're watching, Stephanie, wherever you are, this is the love has become. I'm lucky enough that I get to go on her show here and there. David does. Hey, Egberto. Well, if you don't go on her show, you should, and we should tell her that.
Tell her on because we're on the same network.
I will tell her because
she's such a nice person. Like I have a feeling that Sean Hannity. I mean, it sounds like Hannity came on her radio show or whatever it was that they've traded. They've met. I'm sure socially, and Stephanie's wonderful. And Sean Hannity, when you can get him away from his pugnacious policy positions, he's also a guy who would, give anybody the shirt off of his back. That's the kind of person he is. He's just misguided on his politics. But they're both good human beings, and they've discovered that they can sort of have a little bit of fun jabbing each other and ridiculing each other, and that's an amazing breakthrough for Fox News to think that let's put the other side on. That's somebody who's actually intelligent.
I will give the positive to that. I also say that. He's kind of a smug asshole on TV.
Yeah.
You're right. I've never had an interaction with him off the air, though I believe I told you, David, I got banned from the show. Well, it wasn't his show, so we have to go back a while now. As I told you, I'm an old guy. It was Hannity versus Combs.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, man, I remember that good old Combs. He died, though,
Yeah, sadly, he died. So I went on that show, and he was trying to, give you an idea how long ago this was. He was trying to rip into John Kerry for being a flip-flopper. And so I just started naming all of the flip-flops of George W. Bush, all the lies he told. And I just went to this list of 8 or 10 of them. And Hannity got so pissed off. He's like, what? He started trying to go after me. He's like, what about you? I'm like, why don't you ever let Alan talk? What, are you scared of him? Or something like that. And then we get during the what do you call it? The end, with the end credits. And you can actually, if you could find that video somewhere, you could hear it. He calls me an asshole, and then told somebody to tell me over my earpiece, because I was in DC and he was in New York, that I was banned and would never be invited on the show again. I took that as a point of pride, and I never was invited on the show again. But I think he is. I think interpersonally, I've heard that he may be a decent guy, but when politics come into it, he becomes such a dick that it's hard to not. I mean, Stephanie just did a great job there of just mocking him, proving him wrong. I mean, she made him look stupid on his own show, and that messaging reached whoever the hell was watching Fox News at that time. So that's good.
If the truth of the matter is, I tell anybody who can get onto Fox News, go ahead and go on. And I like the way Pete Buttigieg does it on Fox. He's one of the most articulate guys to do it in a way that always catches them off guard, always. But he does it.
Because it's both a combination of intelligence and smart and very articulate. But, I think Fox expects Democrats to sort of be frothing at the mouth and angry and drooling. And when a Democrat comes across and is sort of having a good time and able to sort of enjoy, hey, I'm going to have a good time with you, Sean Hannity or Fox and Friends or whatever, and smile. And as I, stick the knife in you, I mean, that's effective.
Well, and that was brilliant because she did it that way.
Yeah.
When you start believing your own lies, that's when you get in trouble. It's just like what they say, when the cocaine pusher starts to use this cocaine, then you're in trouble. I mean, and that's
Right.
what these people don't realize. They've told your
Scarface was
people
doing
so
just
much.
fine
Right.
until he started to dump his face into his own product. Before that, Scarface was all, but like, that's it. And then he got in the fight with what's his face, and and it didn't end well.
And who was the guy who got chopped up by the chainsaw in Scarface?
Oh, yeah.
That was no good. But his buddy or sort of pal in crime, you could say, who was his best buddy in that movie, went on to have a recurring role on Breaking Bad and Better Call Saul as a drug lord. So they actually that show was somewhat based on, let's see if we can take a chemistry teacher and through things that happened to him, turn him into Scarface. Literally, that was their whole premise for that show. But there you go. There's a little trivia for everybody at the end of our. So in the end,
before we end, you got to ask Egberto. I mean, you're on Pacifica Radio. Tell us where else people can find you: Substack, social media, all that kind of stuff.
Oh, I appreciate that. On Substack, you can find me at egberto.substack.com. or just go to @Egberto Willies. I am on at 6 a.m. Central Time every morning on KPFT 90.1 FM in Houston, but I also simulcast that on my Substack channel. And at 3 p.m. Central, I'm always on Substack with our program as well.
Are you based in Houston?
I am based in Houston, yes.
Good. We need fighters down there. I'm good to hear that.
Let me tell you, the Houston women, and I say this specifically, I'm here in Kingwood, a very red area. These women are out there every Thursdays, every day. And whenever we had the King's March, this place only had ever brought 100 people together. That day we had 1,000 people. So things are happening, my friends. Things are happening.
Oh, they are. They are. There's no doubt. So they know where to find you there. They know where to find you on your radio show. We'll share all that. We'll be sending out a newsletter, as we always do, to our Substack subscribers. If you haven't subscribed, blueamp.co, please do. And so we'll, they'll get to see this video, and we'll kind of round it up a little bit.
And to Mario Rivera, who just joined our show here at the end, we love even you, Mario. Go back and watch the rest of the show.
Mario, you caught a great minute or two, but you know what? There's just so much more. And seriously, I agree with David. There's no criticism there. I'm glad you were able to get here. Just tell your friends about us. We do this regularly. Last thing I'll say, and I'll let everybody go. If you guys want to reach out in various ways and let us know, I probably told you that, and I tried one of these things earlier today with somebody else, live. My phone and Substack have been having compatibility issues of the sort where I sound like I'm locked up in a tunnel somewhere, a sinking tunnel underwater, and I don't know what the deal is. And I went to the store, and I've tried with Substack. So I'm getting a new upgraded phone, but until then, at the very least, we may stay with this format through StreamYard directly to Substack, or we may go back to the phone one. I don't know, but I'd love for you guys to tell us if you have any preference, if there is something about either one of them that you liked better. Because obviously, hey, we want to keep everybody happy and keep you coming by and keep people like Egberto having a willingness to join us on our show and be seen with such scoundrels like us. So
Allie Leonard says it, you sound better, Cliff. So
sounds better. Yeah. I think it does. I maybe when I get the new phone, the upgraded iPhone, I'll try it, but maybe I won't. I don't know. Well, maybe this is good. I like this. I like having a computer here. Listen, all of you that came here to check this out, I hope that we fulfilled your expectations. I hope you enjoyed it. Egberto, you have been incredible.
Awesome.
I hope that we can have you on more. I hope we can join you. Hope you can wake me up really early in the morning sometime to join you on Houston radio. Love me down in Texas. That's not true, actually. But, I would love to do it. And, I mean, David Shuster.
I would love to.
What are you going to say about
both.
David Shuster? Emmy-winning Dad of the Year who needs to go right now and pick up his kid.
And I got to go pick up the kids right now. So great show, Egberto. Thank you so much, Cliff. Thank you as well. Appreciate it, you guys.
So
thank you so kindly.
Thank you all. you know, I might as well just do my usual sign off. My friends, as the sun sets slowly in the west, I bid you all a fond farewell. Take care.